buntag sa tanan. So right now, actually looking at your comments regarding the activity. So our questions is, before we may proceed to the discussion on RIZAL, we need to settle down first a lot of questions. So as may I see, most of your comments here pertaining to RIZAL as a national hero is that copy-paste in most cases. So here, among the students coming from BACS third year, so Gladys Alicante said, Rizal was a humble, fighting for reform through his writings instead of revolution. He did not use aggressiveness. Instead, he was still calmly writing novels, his ultimate sword to fight for independence. And of course, there's a lot more, but I guess Alicante failed to incorporate her source. Serad also made mention that Rizal would prevail to his motherland and countrymen through one of his final letters, Mi Ultimo Adios, or My Last Farewell, before his execution. Dr. Jose Rizal was executed on the morning of December 30, 1896. So again, there is no source that was cited here. But by the way, let me wrap up the entire discussion itself into 4 basic issues pertaining to the heroism of Rizal. Number 1 is that among historians, there is this kind of debate, long-standing debate, pertaining to his idealism as a hero. Some would even call him a hero, while others would also like to consider him as a martyr. Well, I guess the two has a very conflicting beginning from the discussion itself of being a martyr. What is a martyr and what is a hero? A hero is someone who is much conscious of his effort in order to attain his goal. Okay? And that person, upon his death, must be, he already accept to himself that in his effort to fight the hegemonic power, the imperialist, he will soon to course sacrifice, to pay for the ultimate sacrifice. And that person deserves to be considered as a hero. On the other hand, you are also considered as a martyr if, by the virtue of your innocence, you have no interest in achieving something, and then out of that incident you are mistakenly considered as insurgent, accused, and then later on you are judged, so you are a martyr. But Rizal, in the other way around, is both a hero and a martyr. That will be a point of discussion for the discussion on life, works, and writings of Rizal. Okay, first, number 1 issue is that why should the Filipinos consider Rizal as a national hero, where in fact, if you try to look at Rizal really never represent any of us. Why? If you try to consider, even in our locality itself, there is no such person that really, you can see the kind of intellect, the level of ability, and everything that Rizal is in position. So why should we consider someone who is not actually representing the rest of us? Some people will consider him as far more difficult to copy compared to Aguinaldo and Bonifacio. Well, if you look at the history, it only shows that Rizal is indeed, Aguinaldo indeed, is a fighting class. It is the same with Bonifacio, which really represent the characteristic of the majority of the Filipino people. So, why should we consider them instead of Rizal? So, number one, we have to look at the main reason why and what is the contribution of Rizal. The difference between Aguinaldo, Bonifacio, and the rest of their Macario Sakay and so on and so forth with Rizal is that if you try to look at the Filipino people way back in time, we are actually, our lands is actually around 7,000 more or less, 7,100 islands, and then try to imagine out of the 7,100 islands, there at least one island is one person. So, imagine, so the population of the Filipino way back in time in the 1500s must be at least 7,000 all in all. Then the question is, how is it possible for the Spaniards, numbering around more or less 300 sailors, that includes navigators, engineers, priests, those 300s are not necessarily fighting class. How is it possible that they were able to overcome the Filipinos, numbering at that moment to around 7,000? The answer lies to the fact that the Filipinos are not yet united way back in time. So we may be very brave, the fighting prowess of the Filipinos are there, these are always recognized by the Spaniards, but the fact is that the Filipinos are not yet united. So the effort of Rizal, of Aguinaldo, and same with Bonifacio, is no less than the same effort that Daguhoy, Lapu-Lapu, and the rest of this fighting class already shown way back in time. But the problem is, who is responsible for the so-called unification? The entrenchment of the idea of the inculcation to the heart and mind of the Filipinos of the concept of nationalism. Isn't it Rizal as the first? That is why in some several books and accounts, Rizal is even considered as the first Filipino. Why? Because way back in time, if you try to look at our history, the original Filipinos are not necessarily us, but rather they are the Spaniards that came to this land, either recognized as Peninsulares or Insulares. They are the Filipino. And the Filipinos way back in time are categorized as Indio. While, of course, the Moro, the Islamized natives are also considered as Moros. So who are the Filipinos? It was Rizal who first inculcated the idea of nationalism, of unification, and later on, the identity of a Filipino bestowed upon the Filipino people. So, it was Rizal who had the first taste of idea of our identity, that later on, it was considered as very important in the awakening of our country. So according to Father Horacio de la Costa, those who have seen nothing but unrelieved evil in the 333 years of Spanish conquest in the country must have pondered to this. Before the arrival of the Spaniards, Philippines is just a geographical expression, an archipelago. It was first becoming a colony that the country becomes a nation. So it was Rizal who introduced that concept to us. So that's the significance. By the way, guys, if you're talking about national hero, we should also look into the definition of hero. National hero, because in scope, they're fighting for the nation, for the entire Philippine territory. Not necessarily only fighting for, like for instance, for Lapu-Lapu is fighting for the island of Mangatang, or later on it was later on as considered as Mactan, or same with Macario Sakay, and the Ilocandia also they have their Gabriela and Silang, the husband and wife. So these are local heroes. Here in Surigao, we also have our own local heroes. We call him Tricky Dabao. But unfortunately, these are not the people who are actually fighting for the unification of the country. They are just limited within the boundaries of their locality. So they are known as local hero. By the way, all these people who have contributed so much for the attaining of our independence, for our identity, are considered as heroes. So there is no such towering figure over Rizal and Aguinaldo, because without Rizal, there is no Aguinaldo. And without Aguinaldo, the effort of Rizal, not reciprocated by the fighting class, then therefore it must be also infutile. So, useless. Nothing would be achieved. So, the same thing. Number one, we have settled that issue. Rizal is not, might not be representing the rest of us, but it was Rizal who united us. The consciousness of Rizal